Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I am Faye Barron with Benefits Department in Human Resources. If you haven't met me before, hello. Lots of familiar faces here. We are really excited to welcome Drs. Collins and Onan from Brandon Health Chiropractic today. They're going to spread the gospel of good spinal health today. So enjoy your lunch, enjoy your presentation, and we'll have a Q&A in just a few minutes.
This is on. Okay. I think we're supposed to push this too.
We're going to use that one, yes.
But I think this records. Right? Okay. Hello, I am Dr. Lindsay Onan.
And I'm Dr. Ellen Collins.
We're from Brandon Family Chiropractic, and we are chiropractors. Shocker. We are not public speakers, so we're going to keep our day job. I will take the pity. If we say something that might sound like it should be funny, please laugh, nod, so I know you're alive. And if you hear me stutter and stumble over my words, no, you didn't. Can everybody, does anybody want to move closer? Y'all scared? We're good? Okay. So first, story time with Dr. Lindsay. Once upon a time, there was a girl in college, and she had her wisdom teeth removed. Has anyone had their wisdom teeth out? Okay. And she ended up with 4 dry sockets. Anyone had a dry socket? So for those of you that haven't had that pleasure, a dry socket is when the clot doesn't form. So, yeah, you're nodding. You had that. So the bone and the nerve is exposed. Really, really painful. But all 4 hurt the same, so she thought it would go away. So what happens when you have an open wound for about 2 weeks? What happens? You get an infection. So she got an infection, got a nasty infection. It got in her bloodstream and settled in her sacrum, the bones down low in her low back. So she had a bone infection, was in the hospital because she was so sick, was on antibiotics. They also gave her Stadol. If any of you have had a baby, that's what they give you when you're in labor. Made her hallucinate. There's a life-size Bugs Bunny standing at the end of her bed and G.I. Joe men marching down her arm. Fun, but you can't sustain that. So took that away, was on antibiotics for a long time. The infection was finally gone, but the pain wouldn't go away. She had to go back to college, was either sleeping through class because she was on the pain medicine they gave her, or crying through class because she was trying to stay awake and not take the medicine so she wouldn't fail out of school. So that went on for a while, just moping, miserable, and her roommate finally said, why don't you try a chiropractor? So out of desperation, I think she would have tried anything at that point. She went to the chiropractor, first doctor to touch her back. Everyone else had said, your infection's gone, I don't know why you're still hurting, it's in your head. But first doctor to touch her back, found problems in her low back, did an adjustment, and the pain wasn't gone, but that was the first time she had had relief since the whole thing started. I know all the details of the story because that girl was me. Everybody's surprised. So I think it's important that I share my story, why I'm here, why I'm a chiropractor. I've been where some of you might be right now, or where a loved one is. And I had lost hope. In my early 20s, I thought that's how my life was going to be. I was setting an alarm to take a pain pill around the clock just to function. And we know that's not functioning. And eventually, that wouldn't have worked anymore, and who knows where I would be. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I think it's important that we share what we know with you, because there could be someone in this room with lost hope, or someone that has lost hope as well. So.
All right. So in the United States, we have the #1 healthcare system in the world in terms of doctors, research, equipment, trauma and crisis care. We are #1 in the world. So if you're ever in a crisis situation, you are in the perfect place for it. Okay. But that's only about 1% of our overall health care. So the other 99%, the checkups, the blood work, the dental visits, the day-to-day kind of stuff that we do, compared to the rest, I think we're ranked 79th out of 81 industrialized countries when it comes to the rest of our health care. So not so great. But a lot of times when you go to the doctor, they take what we call a symptom-based approach, right? Which pretty much says if you have any kind of symptoms, they're relating that to poor health. And if we get rid of those symptoms, that will improve your health, okay?
And then we like to talk about the fallacy of feeling good. So the leading causes of non-accidental death in the United States in 2023, excluding COVID, were heart disease, cancer, and stroke. Dr. Ellen, can you tell me what the first signs of heart disease, cancer, and stroke are?
Heart disease, cancer, and stroke.
So everyone like resonate with that? Like, you know someone that was perfectly healthy and then they had a heart attack. Were they though? There might not have been symptoms, but they weren't healthy up until that moment. So we can't continue to base our health off of symptoms, because symptoms typically mean we've waited too long. It's too late. How do you feel? Healthcare should not be based off how a person feels. You can be, stick with me, I'm going somewhere with this. You can be unhealthy and feel no symptoms, but you can also be healthy and feel symptoms. So has anyone had a fever? We got a lot of people. Okay, everybody. How do you feel when you have a fever? Terrible, right? It's not fun. But a fever is actually a good thing. It means your immune system is working. Viruses can only live at certain temperatures, so it's your body warming up enough to kill off that virus. Has anyone had food poisoning? Sorry, I'm talking about food poisoning while you're eating your lunch. Great timing, great timing. It's terrible, it's not fun, but the reaction, although awful, is a good one, because what if you weren't getting rid of those toxins? It's going to cause a lot more damage to your body. So healthy people get sick. It's just a matter of how your body responds to those illnesses.
So what is health? Not a single definition defines health as how we feel, right? Usually it's talking about optimal function of our body. And then, of course, we as chiropractors always like to talk about innate intelligence. Now, all innate intelligence is just that inborn wellness that you have from birth, right? You don't have to think about your heart beating, your lungs breathing, cuts healing. The body already knows how to do all that, okay? It's going to be there the day that you're born. It'll be there the day that you die. And it is constant, right? It always knows what's right. Unfortunately, the optimal function is what can be variable for us. And maybe a little easier way to think about this, we have Mr. Billy Joel here. He's going to be our representative for innate intelligence, that inborn wellness, because he's going to get it right 100% of the time, right? Forwards, backwards, upside down, blindfolded, ears covered, he's got it. Now say we're going to go see him in concert, and they set up his piano and they drop it, and now it looks like this. Keys are broken, keys are stuck, pedals not working, but they're like, oh, he's Billy Joel, he can make it work, no big deal. And he sits down to play, he's going to play Piano Man first song, and he sits down to play, and what we think we're going to hear, not necessarily what we hear, right? Same thing with your health and your body. The body knows what it's doing, it knows exactly what to do, but if it doesn't have that structure and that function to back it up, we won't necessarily get the health that we are expecting.
So what does this mean? It says, health is not about symptoms, it's about structure and function. And health is your birthright. You were born to be healthy. You were designed to be healthy. You deserve to be healthy. So we need to stop accepting these pains and aches and illnesses as normal.
So what is limiting our function? And this is a word that, if you've been to a chiropractor, you've probably seen this word before, subluxation. That means that there is a misalignment in one of your spinal bones, putting extra pressure on a nerve or on that nervous system, and it's interrupting that communication between the brain and the rest of the body.
So there are different causes of subluxations. So physical, chemical, and emotional stress. So physical things are obvious: repetitive motions, falls, accidents, posture, physical labor. Chemical stressors, things we breathe, things we eat, things we put on our skin, and then emotional stress. Does anyone have emotional stress? Anyone ever get stressed? All of those things can cause subluxations, and I know a lot of times we just think about the physical things, but the other things can as well.
Now, it's not always, like she said, one thing, right? It's not always one big event in your life that leads to these subluxations. Sometimes it's little things over time that kind of add up, right? So let's say in high school we got a sports injury, but we're young. We think, oh, no big deal. In a couple weeks I'll feel fine. Won't even think about this. And then in college, we get in a car accident, same kind of thing. You jump out, your adrenaline's rushing. I feel fine. We don't even need to call insurance. Don't worry about it. I'm good. It'll be fine. And now we work a job that is very stressful to us, right? Which adds extra muscle tension and all of those other things. So all of these things over time kind of add up to get us in the shape that we're currently in. Now, this is Mr. Christopher Reeve. He used to play Superman on TV back in the day, and he had a very severe horseback riding accident. Now, in that accident, he got what they call a hangman's fracture. That's when you fracture the top bone in your spine, okay? Normally, the only way that you would get a fracture like that would be being hung from a noose, right? That's where the name comes from. And many people do not survive this type of fracture, right? Because it's cutting off communication from here down. Now, he was very lucky that the people around him knew to keep him stable, keep him steady so they could get him to the hospital. He did survive, but he did have to have an artificial respirator for the rest of his life. Now, nothing wrong with his lungs, right? They were not injured in this crash, but the nerves going to his lungs could not function because they had lost that connection with the brain. Now, this is a more severe type of subluxation, right? These are not the type of subluxations we deal with in our office. But concept is still the same, right? There's extra pressure on those nerves and they cannot function the way that they're meant to, which means the brain and the body cannot communicate the way that they're supposed to. So these are just a couple nerve charts, and I think the one on the left-hand side, yes, is the one that we think about all the time. So nerves coming out of that spine, going down to our hands and our arms and down into our feet and our legs. But a lot of times I think we forget that all of those nerves are also going to our internal organs as well.
So the nerves in your neck go to your eyes, ears, salivary glands, sinus cavities, your thyroid, and then into your arms, hands, and fingers. Middle back goes to heart, lungs, stomach, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas, and then the low back goes to bladder, bowels, reproductive organs, and then also down into the legs. So a lot of times these pain problems turn into health problems. So signs of a subluxation. These are things that chiropractors look for to determine if you have a subluxation, so if you have a chiropractic problem. So first is pain and tenderness. The second is muscle tension. Sometimes muscles will even spasm because they're just trying to tighten up as fast as they can to protect whatever's going on in the area. There will be some inflammation. When something's inflamed, it's going to give off some heat, so it'll be hot to the touch. And then there's also a fixation. So if the joints are stuck, then you just can't move in all ranges of motion the way that you should. And then common sense tells us that something only goes away when what's causing it goes away. So putting things off too long. If you came in here today and there was a water spot on the ceiling this big, it's going to go away, right? It'll be fine. What's it going to look like in 3 months? Bigger. But it's fine. It's still fine. It's going to go away. What's it going to look like in a year? Might have a big gaping hole in your ceiling. So how much less time and energy and money would it have been to fix it when it was this big versus waiting until you have a hole in your ceiling? And then the other problem is covering things up, continuing to cover things up. There was a Bayer aspirin commercial years ago, and it's infuriating because it said, for the normal everyday headache. Who thinks having a headache every day is normal? Somebody does because they put it in a commercial. It's not normal. If you have a headache every day, please see me after this. It's like if you were driving here today, though, and the oil light, the check engine light came on your car, and you just put duct tape over it and continued to drive. I don't know a lot about cars, but I've been told not to do that. That is a bad idea. So your problem is still there, but we're continuing to cover it up until it's so big that you may or may not have options.
So the good news is that chiropractors are trained to find and remove these subluxations, these misalignments in our spine, which removes that nervous system interference so the brain and the body can communicate the way that they were supposed to, and so that the body can function the way that it's supposed to. Now, we do have a couple case studies. These are patients that we've seen in our office. They know that we use their pictures and they don't mind. This guy originally came to us with lower back pain, so bad that he was sleeping on the floor because that was what was comfortable to him. He could not sit in the car and ride for any extended amount of time. His son lived about 2 hours away. He could not go visit his son on the weekends and practice baseball like they wanted to do. He was pretty much just stuck in his pain. When he came in, he was doubled over just trying to walk in the door. And so the picture that you see on the left-hand side again is when he first came in. His pelvis was sitting higher on that right side by about 10 millimeters. Now, normally we want it as close to 0 as we can get it, okay? Because that's the base of your spine where it kind of builds off of. So higher on that right side by 10 millimeters, we got him in the office, got him under care, and I want to think 6-ish weeks later, we retook his pictures, and that's the picture that you see on the right. So his pelvis had gone from 10 millimeters to 7 millimeters. Now, obviously not perfect, right? But he was moving better, feeling better. He could sleep in the bed. He could go visit his son on the weekends and practice baseball and do all that fun stuff. But another thing that he told us when we retook his films, I want to think it was like a week before we did that, he had gone to see his family doctor. And he did not tell us before that he had high blood pressure. And even on the medication, he was still having the fatigue, the headaches, the dizziness, all of those symptoms that come along with high blood pressure. But he told us that day that we retook his pictures that his doctor was able to cut his medication in half because he was no longer having all of those symptoms that were coming along with it. So not only moving better, feeling better, but inside blood pressure not as high as well.
Go back to that one. One more thing to add to this one too. The pelvis is the base of your spine, so when that's uneven, you're going to distribute the weight evenly on hips, knees, and ankles. So he's in his early 40s. He plays softball on a league and was having a lot of knee pain on the right. Do you all see why he would have knee pain? He's putting a lot more pressure on that knee. And he was like, oh, it's just because I'm getting old. Turns out his other knee is the same age. So after working on him and making a 3 millimeter difference, he's able to play softball without knee pain too. And that wasn't something that initially brought him in because he thought, oh, I'm just getting older. It's one of those normal things of aging, and it shouldn't be. And then this, I almost said woman, in her early 30s, she was having a lot of, anybody have headaches? Migraines? Okay, all of you see this after. She had been having migraines since she was a teenager. And when she came into the office, she was mad about it. And she tells, we went through everything, all the testing that she had done, all the doctors, all the specialists, all the days that she had missed of work from her migraines, totaled $85,000 that these migraines have cost her. And she was still having them. She was having them once a week as a single mom. So whenever you look at the neck, so this is the side view of the neck, and it should have a C-shaped curve that makes it act like a spring. This part of this bone and this part of this one should curve around and line up back here, and her head was 26 millimeters forward. So that's like if you were going to hold an 8-pound bowling ball like this, you could do that for a while, right? But what about when you hold it here? So everything's tight, everything's pulled forward. Those top vertebrae in her neck are not working the way that they're supposed to. Again, 1 migraine or more a week. So missing lots of work still. So we started working on her, doing adjustments, exercises, and therapies. And then 4 weeks later, just 4 weeks later, took pictures again, and it went from 26 millimeters back to 17. So it's still not perfect, moving in the right direction. But at this point, she's not having migraines anymore. So even with the medication that she was taking with her migraines, it had gotten it down to once a week. But after 4 weeks of care, with the same problems she had dealt with her whole life, pretty much, her main complaint was gone. So math is not my thing, but after doing some math, with some help, because it is not my thing, the money she had spent on the migraines and the money that it had cost her from missing work, that equated to 60 plus years of chiropractic care with no migraines. So that is the meat and guts of our health talk today. We wanted to thank you all for coming. We have a special gift for you all. Do you have them? Perfect. So it's called a certificate of health, and it makes, if you're interested, your consultation, exam, and then any necessary x-rays just $49. If your insurance is better, that's obviously what we go with, but that's up to a $250 value depending on what you would need. So if we said anything today that resonated with you or made you think of someone else in your life, if you want to raise your hand, we can bring you one of these. We're also here if anyone wants to come up and ask us any questions, or if you want to ask questions to the group, we can do that as well. We also are available to do spinal screenings if anyone is interested. Too. So anybody have any questions?
Anyone have a
bring to the group?
question?
Or anyone want one of these certificates here? Perfect.
I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so had a rear-end collision on Oliver Lewis Way on my way to work. Yay! Workers' comp.
Oh.
So, went back home. I called home to another physical therapist and was adjusted. It was great. But then I had an injury at work again.
Oh, shoot.
This year or this past year, and so had to get adjusted, DPT and all that stuff again. So when you get adjusted, are you pretty much going to have to be adjusted your entire life from that point on?
That's a good question. I feel like a lot of people have that question, so I'm glad you asked. It's one of those things that just because you start brushing your teeth today, it's a good idea. But does that mean you have to brush your teeth for the rest of your life? No, you don't want to. But there's nothing in the body that's permanent, so if you're wanting to keep up with it, most patients choose to, because if not, everything can. It's like if you go to the gym and you get in really good shape and then you stop going, you're not in good shape forever. So just because you start doesn't mean that you have to, but if you're wanting to keep those results, most do choose to.
Follow-up question.
Yeah,
So at what age do you top out?
you don't. You have a spine and nervous system forever. We see everything from, what do we say, twinkle to wrinkle. My daughters got adjusted as soon as they were born. They were handed to me because I mean, you think about the mom, but it's traumatic on the kid too. They're literally pulled out and twisted by their head. And I had a patient that came in this morning. She's 85, I think. Yeah. The adjustments change depending on the age, but we're a family practice. We see twinkle to wrinkle. That's the thing. Anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you all for having us. We're going to stick around if you have any questions you don't want to ask to the group, or if you want to get a spinal screening, we have an app that can tell you a lot of cool things about your posture. So.
Very
Thank
much.
you.